of differences when it comes to both. So that's what I do. And I've been doing media work for, oh my gosh, like 10 years. I'm young. I started when I was about 17 years old. I covered traditional sports and music media, and I found my way over to eSports.
Oh, that's awesome. And now, one of the things that, as people look into the esport industry, they're trying to get a guide on it as a sport. And there's so many different leagues, teams, games, that it gets very confusing to explain to people. As I'm one of the original investors in Overactive Media with Chris Overholt and those guys in Meta and Marcus Colston and a few others, as we've learned, each of the different licenses in itself is really its own sport, but yet there's leagues, teams, and all these different variables that are confusing people of how do I get my arms around this when I'm used to, the NFL plays football.
Yeah, so one way I try to explain to people is that it's very, like you said, very similar to how traditional sports is. You have the NBA of the world, and if you want to have a correlation with NBA, it would be League of Legends. Then you have like the NFL, you have the Major League Baseball. The same way that all of the leagues are under the umbrella of sports leagues, they all have their distinct players. They all have their different teams. They all have their different rules and regulations. And, they do have similarities across the board, but the same way that we see sports leagues function, eSports leagues function as well. The only difference is that there are certain eSports competitive teams where they are not city-based franchise systems. So, like, for example, League of Legends is not a city-based franchise system, and that specific competition is split up into a division more specific overseas for Europe and Asia, and then they also have a division that is more so for over here in the Americas and the Western Hemisphere. And so you have that. But then you have competitions like Overwatch League and Call of Duty. They have city-based franchise systems that are set up. So you have a team from Minnesota, Minnesota Rockers for Call of Duty, and for Overwatch for New York, you have NYXL, and they also have their own New York Call of Duty team, the Subliners. So with eSports, what we're starting to see is certain competitive teams are actually implementing the traditional frameworks that we see in sports, and even some people from traditional sports are working over there, like Hannah Ferris, who's the commissioner for the Call of Duty League. She's been at the NFL prior for many, many years. Now she's over there. And it's interesting that even though people may look at the esports competitive scene and be like, oh my gosh, like this is so new, it's very similar to traditional sports. You do have the Michael Jordans of the world for League of Legends, that's a player named Faker. You do have the top teams. You do have the top franchises. It's just, it seems like it's a lot, but when you break it down and you look at every competitive scene, it's very similar in some structures and formats as traditional sports. The only difference, though, with esports is you don't need to be competing face-to-face with one another. That's why esports right now is the only sport that is still going, because they can play online with each other.
Right, and their fans are online watching with Twitch and other things. And that's going to have a huge impact moving forward. One of the most interesting things that I found, I got involved in 2016 and early on only because my son and I went to the NBA championship with the head of my media, and he looked over at Oracle Arena and told me that it sold out for the League of Legends tournament or finals. And I said to him, no, I think you're mistaken. That's an online thing. And he said, and then my media guy said, no, more people are going to watch the championship than will watch the NBA championship for League of Legends. And I said, no, that can't be. And I did research, and I couldn't believe that, me, myself, who ran the most notable sports agency in the world, had one of the most notable sports marketing companies and media companies, and all the people from the owners to the GMs to the presidents to, I'm commissioner of USA Cricket, and I'm on the Olympic Committee, like all these things I'm involved with. How could this have, in 2016 gone past me, but yet I'll still go on a show, and I won't name the networks. But I was interviewed even recently on a really big network with a really big show, and I brought up esports, and the two commentators literally didn't know about it. that's the discrepancy, the division still in the traditional side of things. Now, we've reached much closer to chasm, but I still think people don't understand that there are millions and millions, if not a billion people that don't even know what esports are. They just think about gaming.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And I think right now is although we are in a period of time that's very unsettling, it's also an opportunity for people to further understand esports, and also the opportunity for people within esports and even content creators within the gaming space to put out content to thrive. Considering there's a lot more eyeballs and attention with people self-quarantining and so forth. But I actually have a question for you that I'm really interested in asking, because you, throughout your career, whether it's through ups or downs, you've had to adapt and adjust. And there's a lot of people now that are trying to adapt and adjust, especially for their careers, because businesses are being affected. What would be an advice that you would give to those who are looking to make that pivot, make that turn, and to adapt to the current times that we're in from a career standpoint? And I know not everyone can, but even if they have the abilities to, or even have the abilities to pivot marketing-wise, what would your advice be?
Yeah, so number one, my career is a continuum, right? My career is activity I get paid for and activity I don't get paid for. It's a career that will involve how productive I can be, meaning how much value I can provide and hopefully get paid for, how much and how accessible I am to others, and how am I accessing what I want out of my career, and having the right mindset, which leads to the three things that everybody should look at in their career outside of defining themselves. The ego is going to want you to define yourself as, I'm a cheddar, analyst or producer, or this, this is me. I'm a lawyer, a doctor, an engineer, a failure. People will define themselves by their career. I never have. And probably because I was in the pursuit of money early in my career. So what I looked at was, I need to develop my skills. I need to learn all the lessons I can through experience and mentorship, and being more interested than interesting. But every day that I was developing skills would give me more options. The other thing that I wanted to develop was my knowledge. Through mentorship, experience, whatever it was, the more knowledge that I had, the better I could have pivot opportunities, right? More options that I would have. And then finally, and most importantly to me, was that I had a different perspective of desire, right? I wasn't going to live by voting for what other people wanted my career to be. And I think this is one of the biggest detriments, is that, so many people are worried about, what their parents think, their grandparents think, their best friends think, their teachers think, their counselors think. You have to care in respect of listening and learning through skills and knowledge, but ultimately you need to vote for what you want, because the one thing that will make you successful in that continuum will be, that journey will be dictated by your desire, and your desire will be dictated on what you're willing to invest in yourself. I never use the word sacrifice. People say, oh, this guy, this woman, they sacrifice so much. It's no, I'm consistently investing in myself and voting for what I want, right? And it's a big difference. And so if you or anyone else out there, you're so young, if you change your priorities and focus to, every day I'm going to learn as many and practice as many skills as I can through experience and mentorship, etc. Two, knowledge. I am on a desperate quest for knowledge. I am more interested than interesting. I'm consistently, and I always have a period of time during the day that I have scheduled for research or interest. And then three, I'm going to invest as much in myself as I can, because the legs feed the lion, and the more that I invest in myself, the greater the opportunities are going to be to pivot. Those three things just provide me more options and opportunities than anyone else. And this is the time to start doing it while everybody has a little bit of extra downtime. Everybody can take a step out of the water and look at the entire pond and figure out what boat or water ski or jet ski they want to take, and be able to develop and put a plan to develop different skills, right? I always joke around, but I practiced skills. I decided that selling after law school, selling was going to be a great skill. And then I learned within the context of selling, raising money was going to be this expertise or the superpower I wanted within selling. And then to teach people all of these things became a skill as well. And I gained as much knowledge as I could through watching, reading, learning, and most importantly, asking. And as you know, not to be repetitive, if you can get into the practice of asking open-ended questions and narrowing it down of how you can be of service or of value, but more importantly, having the radical humility to ask people how they can help you. One touch of favor, right? I mean, people like me have changed lives for people by making one introduction and people performing in those opportunities, because that's the best way to get involved in a new opportunity, is somebody to recommend you or give you advice. Well, I do that because people changed my life. I've had certain people that have given me opportunities and touches of favor, referrals and opportunities. Yes, I had the skills, the knowledge, and the investment in myself or the desire, but without those touches of favor, I never would have had the acceleration and growth or even the recovery that I had when I was with Lee Steinberg and lost, literally everything financially. I had such a network of people willing to help me, and if I didn't ask for help from those people, I don't think I would be where I am today. Hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, definitely. And I 100% agree. For me, I've had help along the way, and even for me personally, like in 2018, I went through such a transitional period in my career, my life. It was pretty much a very hectic year in the sense that, I was laid off from a job. I had an extensive hip surgery. I literally didn't have insurance or anything for that whole year. And even through all of that, right, it was a moment where, one, I learned that it's okay to ask for help. And two, in addition to that as well, that was the period of time that I made the transition into covering eSports and the gaming industry from a media perspective instead of just being someone who watches it. And that was a moment that I chose to take a route that I wanted to take, and whether people agreed with it or not, and it worked out in the end. So it's really interesting just to see how there's these pivotal moments in our lives that move us towards having a career that we want, and like you said, not having parents or anyone dictate or give their opinions in terms of what we can and cannot be. So it's really interesting, and I appreciate that advice. I'm sure a lot of people are looking to be able to make that transition now in some way, shape, or form. And especially now more than ever, we need to help one another.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Aaron, what's funny that you say that is most people don't know this about one of my mentors is Einstein, right? I study Einstein. I love Einstein. I love the theory of relativity and time and the metaphysical world of what he can prove mathematically. But the key to Einstein's success was that he couldn't get a job out of school. And so he was the only one that graduated. He couldn't get a job. And so he had all this downtime just to think about things. And it's amazing if people would take this opportunity, whether it's 3 or 6 or 8 weeks, whatever it may be. We are going, there's an old religious saying, this too shall pass. This too shall pass. But yet, we have an extraordinary opportunity like Einstein did to use our higher power of thinking and to figure things out without voting for what other people want, to exploring like you did, because it changed your life, and now you have so many different options in what you can do. In your 20s, you are sitting in a growing space with a lot of skills, knowledge, and desire that a lot of people don't have, and you'll have many, many more options as eSports as a platform grows, as eSports as an industry grows. It's still at its early phases. It's pre-chasm, although it's very successful and more people are involved in any other sport without everybody knowing it. There's going to be so many opportunities, but you have the skills, knowledge, and desire and the quest and journey. And I promise you, when you got involved, there was more people that were laughing, scoffing, and confused by what you were doing, the same way as when I got involved in the internet and started to vote for what I wanted. Here you are getting involved at the same age, at the same time, into eSports the way I did with the internet, and it will only serve you well. And the only thing I hope is that you remember me when you're so big, and you're my age, you'll be like, oh yeah, that old man Dave Meltzer, I should give him a call. He helped me out.
Oh yeah, of course I will. I would definitely reach out. I mean, I'm going to stay in touch with you, obviously, throughout the entire process. And I guess another question for you is, because eSports is integrating more traditional sports, like, for example, Oakland Raiders, they were adding a gaming zone within their new stadium. Then also the Sixers at Wells Fargo Center, not just Sixers, but all the teams that play at Wells Fargo Center, they have Nerd Street Gamers that put a gaming station in there. So we're starting to see traditional sports embracing eSports. How does that, I guess, impact from a sports marketing perspective, now that there are brands that are looking for that intersection of traditional sports and eSports together, whether it be a players, whether it be a team or anything like that?
Yeah, so I have a really easy answer to that, because if you traditionally look, originally sports is always a successful place to advertise and brand. And so, originally it was done in newspapers, and I'm old enough where I, living on the West Coast, used to have to wait for the newspaper to find out whether the Padres beat the Mets or not, and it was usually not, but whether the Padres beat the Mets or not, because East Coast time, right, it got too late. They couldn't report on it, right? The printers went out too much. So the same thing holds true today. You went from paper to radio, radio to black and white TV to color TV, and then color TV to HD TV, and then to handhelds and to ubiquity. Throughout that whole spectrum of time, what advertising and marketing is all about, and branding is all about, is repetitive exposure to content, determinative upon three things: how far of a reach or spectrum does it have, how powerful a signal, what audience are you looking at, and how clear is your message, right? And I used to joke around when early on in the traditional days, I would ask, we were doing a MetRex commercial with Troy Aikman, and I'd ask people, just joking, I'm like, what was the name of that product, when they saw the commercial? And if a high percent of the people said, I don't remember, I said, you just missed the boat, right? Well, the same thing is going to hold true in eSports. The only difference is we have such an effect that you can actually reach 4.2 billion people, that you actually can pick your spectrum. I mean, I could advertise specifically to 19-year-old boys who like Hershey's milk chocolate bars with almonds. That wasn't happening when you put an ad in a newspaper before. But the key to it is, what is the strength of the signal? What's the spectrum you're looking for, and the clarity of the message? And how are we, number one, capturing the content, modifying the content, amplifying the content, and perpetuating it? Another thing that exists today is the extended life of content that never existed before. So if I did a Super Bowl commercial for $3 million, it would play for 30 seconds during the Super Bowl. It would never be seen again. Now, when I play a commercial today, that's the beginning of the life cycle, because I'm capturing that commercial and putting it on LinkedIn and Instagram and YouTube and all these other places, and hopefully it has the strength of a signal that other people want to share that and move forward. And now I can take anything. I can take a player, a game, a league, a stadium, whatever it is I want, and I can capture it, modify it, amplify it, and perpetuate it, combined with a brand, and make money, but quantitatively show them exactly who was watching that and how it converted into whatever their objective was: sales, a survey, data, whatever it may be. The traditional sense of marketing and media is most important, but it's people like you that, as I explain how traditional media and how the Fortune 500 work and how the multi-billions of dollars in marketing that are spent, you now can help effectuate, knowing what I know, how best to get the most bang for my dollar. And that's where the value of your knowledge, your skills, and your desire will come in and allow you to really make an impact on the marketing and media world.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting too, because there are such nuances to each community, especially when it comes to the gaming scene. And I think ultimately everyone in this community just wants to make sure that people come in from a genuine approach, and also the typical marketing standards that we've seen when it comes to certain brands in other areas, it doesn't seem to be applying in gaming and esports. Like, for example, Louis Vuitton and League of Legends. Many people in the gaming world were just like, what? Because you think of Louis Vuitton, it's a very high-end brand, and we don't, at least prior, we did not associate high-end brands with esports, right? And so for them to be associated with League of Legends, I mean, I guess the correlation would be the high-end or the high-tier competitive scene. But even them integrating Louis Vuitton in a way where they implemented skins and trophy cases and stuff, that was something that even the community itself in esports were just like amazed by. But it's really cool to see how, even from a marketing and branding perspective, some of the things that we've seen within traditional sports and other sectors, it doesn't quite apply entirely to esports and gaming. And then even still, you have like the Fortnite. Fortnite is its own world that any A-tier movie or company can market in it. So it's been interesting just to see that transition. Is there anything that you would like me to touch on when it comes to esports for your viewers?
Yeah, I'd like to talk about, because I am a sports, marketing person itself, is one of the core understandings that's necessary to be successful is specifically real estate, and understanding what real estate is available, because each of the games, some of the games have entire worlds, and within that world there's a ton of real estate in the game and outside the game, whether it's on Twitch or Cheddar or other places where you have interest and eyeballs and spectrum and signal and clarity that's available. But I'd love for you to explain to the audience just the landscape of real estate that's available in the esports realm, in the industry of esports. Where is the real estate available to advertise and market?
So that's an interesting question, because there's so many different layers, and there's also areas that are currently being built. So of course, on a grander scale, you have the traditional like way that brands get in is via media rights, sponsorships, and even advertising in terms of broadcasting. But we're starting to see different ways that companies are getting involved. So of course, like you have like the Louis Vuittons that have an integration with not only the competitive scene but also the game itself. Then you have entirely in-game advertising when it comes to Fortnite, where they create a whole event or skins or even certain locations on the map to add in, and usually those are for higher end, right? And then other involved in collegiate esports right now. There are a lot of different platforms like Play Versus and a few other organizations, even Riot's involved with the Riot Scholastic in the college competitive scene. So right now there is an opportunity for brands to get involved on the college side. There also are other competitive scenes that do not receive as much, because there's certain tier levels to each competitive scene. Like everyone that has League of Legends, Overwatch, Call of Duty, there's Dota 2, there's also Rocket League, and the fighting game community is another one that is now starting to build up even more. And even within the fighting game community, in terms of their competitive games, broken down into titles. So you have Tekken, Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat. So there's even levels of sponsoring players. Typically, there are sponsorships of players, even more so in the fighting game community. There are sponsorships of teams. There are, content creators, sponsorship or brand integration for streamers in terms of in-play stream or even just content. There's even colleges are now developing programs also where if certain companies want to get involved, like my alma mater, the University of Kentucky, just partnered with an esports org called Gen G, and they're actually developing a program, esports program at the university. Then you also have Harrisburg University has a degree. There's a few other colleges that are starting to implement esports degrees in different ways. There's so many ways that brands can get involved. And there's conferences, there are, indie developers that are developing. I mean, there's so many different areas. I think the one thing that I've always I've always highlighted, whether it's on Cheddar Esports or outside, is that don't look at everything that like the other brands are doing. And what the brands are doing is the traditional, the route, those three ways of sponsorship, advertising, and media rights, right? And those are like the main income sources for esports scene right now in terms of brands putting money in. But there are so many different ways that they can get involved. And there's also a lot of influencers in the sense of nano influencers, micro and macro. And I think that, like, especially now, there are ways to kind of think outside the box. And especially now with, even the NBA is tapping into gaming right now with the Suns. The Phoenix Suns just did a simulator for one of their games. I think they're doing simulations for the entire season. And so I think there's so much land to kind of tap into because a lot of mainstream brands are just getting into the scene. Even though esports has been around for well over 20 years, they're just getting to the scene a lot more. But with those high-end brands or those high-tier brands going for those typical sponsorships, marketing, and branding routes, it's so important for people to also focus in on the grassroots area and even small, lower-tier esports scenes as well, because they get traffic as well. It may not get as high as League of Legends, but Rocket League gets a good amount of traffic, so does the fighting game community. And these are communities and people that will spend money. It's just more important to make sure that whatever way the brands integrate themselves, it has to be a genuine approach. It has to be in a way that makes sense to the community. And it's so important that brands don't just come in and make it very apparent that, they're just trying to grab the audience. Because the esports and gaming community, they're very vocal. They will tell you about yourself. And they have a right to, because, gamers have been chastised for a while. So they will be honest about it. I mean, we've seen artists come in who aren't gamers and people got upset. So it's just about finding the right path and route for you in this landscape, and then also making sure that it's such a genuine approach and in a way that fits within the community and what they establish. I really encourage a lot of brands to take the time to watch competitive scene, watch streams, watch you can actually follow specific video game titles on Twitter, really see how they engage and how they interact with each other, and that's going to help you with finding ways to plant yourself into esports and gaming from a genuine perspective.
That is awesome. When I'm listening to you, I'm thinking back when I was your age, around 1993, and just involved in the internet, and somebody asked me a very similar question about the internet, and they were just as lost as most of the more traditional people were in marketing and branding, lawyers, doctors, insurance brokers, all about the internet. And it was a recession, and everybody was worried about, where are these jobs? It was very similar today, a lot of scarcity, fear, anxiety. And then, as a young person, kind of gave my perspective of the internet and how the internet would transcend with how much content could be pushed through it, how people would access it, the different mediums that would eventually happen, all the way to, from having it in your hand to having it inserted in you and then even replacing components of you, where you can receive this information. People looked at me and it got, so big that it encouraged everyone that, wow, there may be an entire different industry where billions of people can participate and monetize regardless of what happens. It's completely secure and it's completely authentic. That kept coming through from what you say, that we need to have a vibration of the truth, that we need to illuminate what it is and what it's not, and we have to provide the value because it's not going to lie to us. It's going to let us know exactly who's watching, where the data and where the value quantitatively is. And I'm so just excited that you shared all of this with us, especially in this time where people may not be in an optimistic view of what opportunities exist. If you want to take the next 3 to 6 weeks and just learn and experience, like Aaron suggests, eSports, go ahead, follow things, watch things. You'll be able to apply the skills, knowledge, and desire that you have to an entirely new industry that has unlimited potential for everyone to participate in. It's the great equalizer of all industry and of all sport. Doesn't matter if you look like me or look like Jay Stone or look like LeBron James. You could be a multi-millionaire within the context, a participant. It doesn't matter. It is the great equalizer of all, a great platform. And Aaron, I look forward to having future conversations with you. Look forward to helping you in any way that I can to share my experience, situational knowledge, dummy tax advice that I can give from my perspective, and certainly would appreciate your help as we both grow this industry together. Thank you so, so much.
Thank you so much for having me on. Yeah, I'm excited to be growing with you and the community as a whole. It's, like I said, even though it's unsettling times right now, it's also a great opportunity for us to all come together and just continue to grow.
Thank you. I'll talk to you soon. Have a wonderful, wonderful week. Help everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Julie's on and she has a question.
All right. Julie is on and has a question. Should we call her?
Yeah, you can.
All right, I'll call her. All right, we got, is this the last question? Justin, is the last question?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. I'll tell you one thing I don't like about doing this. Is like you sit here and everyone else is reacting to everything. And you're like, what? What? Like your natural reaction is, what'd they say? Who is it?
Hi, honey.
Hi. Hello,
What did
Julie.
I say?
What question do you have for us?
Wait, what did you say?
Who's the barking rat behind you?
It's my dog barking at the window.
Can you pet it? You're live. You know that, right? There's like,
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah, you're live.
Okay, so what I said was, why are you so cute? You have the answer.
Unfortunately, I think a lot of people are puking online. People are puking.
I just want to squeeze your cheeks.
Oh my gosh, our littlest one turned 10 yesterday, so now I guess I'm going to be the victim of this type of behavior. For all of you that think I'm cute, go ahead, call in, let me know. I'm sure the phones will ring off the hook. For those of you that don't think I'm cute, go out and help somebody else.
Bark, I will beat them up.
Well, you're my last caller of the day. I appreciate it. We're going to go live tomorrow. Instagram live tomorrow. We're gonna social spread. We've got limited number of people in here by the quarantine laws. Julie, I'll be coming home very soon. I love you. Thank you. That was a short list of people, Julie and my mom, that think I'm cute, and other blind and deaf women out there that may think I'm cute as well. But moreover, you join tomorrow live. I'm going to keep on coming live on Instagram. Friday, we're going to do a Zoom, the first 100 people training. Do we figure out what time? We got our Chief Betterment Officer
8 a.m.
has to get better.
8 a.m.
8 a.m. All right. 8 a.m. on Friday, we'll have a Zoom link send out for the first 100 people. That's all we can handle to do a training, typical training that we do every Friday. We'll probably circle back and maybe even let everybody join our Monday morning meeting as well. Get a feel for that as we expand out. If you need me, reach out at David Meltzer. Text me at 949-298-2905. Our office is closed. We are being respectful and responsible to not share anything negative towards the 20% that may be exposed and damaged by this unfortunate disease. But just because this disease is harmful doesn't mean it doesn't give opportunity. And I think that's the biggest lesson that we've learned today by all the Q&A is like, Einstein figured it out when he had some downtime. So many great things are figured out when we have this downtime. Spend time with what you value most. It's very rare that we get the extraordinary opportunity to get out of the rat race and be a little bit of Zen. My nickname's the Ferocious Buddha for a reason. It's definitely a time to be ferocious and to be a Buddha. So be productive, accessible, but also be gracious. Be mindful and be positive. And most importantly, be kind to your future self and do good deeds. All of those things will definitely make room for what you want. Go ahead, reach out. This is Dave Meltzer, and stay safe, everyone. Take care.
You must have the playbook.
I did.